This is the Red Line, and I am your host, Jimmy Red. Thanks for tuning in this week. Know we had a big game that just happened Monday night. Sorry we're a little bit behind, but national championship was decided between Alabama and Georgia. SEC matchup. That was a game for the ages. That's all I can say. Because not only did Nick Saban make a very, very gutsy call in pulling out Jalen Hurts, his starting quarterback, and putting in a true freshman to win it, who else would have made that decision? That is a very tough decision to make, especially when you have a game on the line like that, a national championship. I can understand if it was just a weekly game, but you're playing for a national championship against a team who is very good, obviously, because they're in the national championship and have prepared huge. But it was the right call, and it showed that it paid off. And the reasons why are because Georgia, when they prepared for this game, Georgia prepared for Jalen Hurts. And when they prepared for Jalen Hurts, they prepared for a running style of game. Short passing, because they knew Jalen Hurts really couldn't throw the ball too well. So they prepared for that. And when they did, they stopped it. I mean, Jalen Hurts didn't have much at all in that game. Jalen Hurts was pretty well shut down because all he had was like 30, what do you have? He had 21 yards? 21 yards passing. And he had like 46, didn't even have 50 running. So it was crazy that they shut him down like they were supposed to. Sorry, I hit the mic there. But they shut him down like they were supposed to. So that's when Georgia just dominated it. And Nick went into the locker room, and I'm sure his offensive coordinator had a hand in this, and said, we need to make a change. Tua, the true freshman that I was just speaking of, steps into the game, and he went to the same high school from Hawaii that Marcus Mariota went to. This kid is a left-hander, throws the ball left, and has a cannon on him, and plays the game of his life. He just goes out there and goes 14 for 24, 144 yards, and 3 touchdowns with 1 INT. The interception I can understand, nerves, the kid was very hyped up, ready to go. But he played a very good game. And Alabama could have won that game in regulation if they wouldn't have missed a 25-yard chip shot. When they missed that 25-yard chip shot, that sent them to overtime. I think the overtime system in college football is the best college system there is. Reason being, who cares about a punter? Who cares really about kick returns? Kick returns are high, dangerous hits that kids don't need to be taking if they don't need to. So take that out. That basically just makes you have to score. That makes the offense have to produce, your quarterback, your running back have to produce, and also, if not your running back, your kicker has to kick, or your defense has to step up on the other side of the ball. Do I say they can move the ball back a little bit, maybe the 35, 30? Yeah, make them go a little farther. I can understand that because you want to see more football. But I don't think you need the kick return, punt returns. I don't think they need to have the overtime like they do in the NFL. I think the NFL and college football is done correctly, and I think the NFL could possibly learn from that because that's the right direction to go. So, with that being said, he took a sack in that game. The quarterback did, Tua. That was, by God, the worst sack I think I've seen in college national championship history. It was 2nd and 26. The kid got sacked way back there, and it was a terrible sack. He should have never took it. But the next play in overtime, he throws this bomb down the field and hits this kid. And, well, let me just tell you, it was game over, lights out, and Alabama took the W. And when he hit him, the air out of that place for all the Georgia fans, you heard them gasp. But the Alabama fans didn't know it was coming either because it was so awesome. And even Nick Saban said it himself, and everybody knows that I'm not a huge fan of Nick Saban, but I give the man respect where it's due. When he talked and did his interview after the game with Tom Rinaldi, Tom walked up to him and asked him a question, and his reply was, I want to ask a question first. Was that a good game or what? If you didn't like that, then you don't like college football. He's not lying. That was amazing. Not only did Alabama win a game like they got beat on last year, came back, overcame the critics, and won the game because Clemson beat them almost identical, but not in overtime last year with 1 second on the clock to win the national championship. They came back and did it this year to claim those critics with a freshman quarterback. It's pretty good. On the other side of the ball, they had a freshman quarterback too, Jake Fromm. Kid carried that team like a champ most of the year. Gets to the national championship, made that team look good heading into half. They were leading at halftime by a huge margin. I think it was 16. I think it was 16 to, no, 13. Sorry, 13-0 at half. And he had that team well on its way. Then they come out, and they just fell apart. Just ball. Because they scored a touchdown right after half to put them up. So it's 13. They had 13 plus 7, so they were up big. With no points on the board for Alabama. And then Alabama just turned it on. Well, when they did that, I think he fell apart. Fromm did. Just mentally, because he couldn't get anything to go for him. And he threw for 232 yards, but he threw 2 interceptions, only 1 touchdown. So that hurt. But the running game, it didn't struggle as bad. It wasn't as good as it was against Oklahoma, but it struggled, but not as bad. Michelle ran for 98, and the kid from Georgia that everybody loves, that I really wanted to see get a national championship, Nick Chubb, didn't have the greatest game. He only ran for 25 yards on 18 carries. Not that good of a day. So they struggled with one running back, but they did really good on the other. It's hard to move the ball against Alabama because they got such a good defense. All in all, Georgia is going to be dangerous next year. They're going to bring back their quarterback. They're going to bring back Kirby Smart. And speaking of Kirby Smart, I think he has a chance to possibly beat Nick Saban next year when they play, if they play in the SEC Championship, and to become the first guy to beat Saban, because all the predecessors that Saban has trained along the way have yet to beat him. He is 12-0. Nick Saban is against all of them. Kirby Smart would have been the first one to do it, and that would have been awesome. And I think he has the team next year if they play each other to do it. It's going to be hard to beat Nick Saban because he's obviously going to have a good squad as well, but he's losing a lot of good people. So with that being said, we're going to switch over to players that are going to the draft and have already declared. Last week, I made a mistake, and I said that Jarrett Stidham was leaving Auburn, and they were going to be short of a quarterback. He's not. He's coming back. He will be the quarterback at Auburn next year. As of now, the only one leaving Auburn is Kerryon Johnson. I think that's going to hurt a little bit, but they're bringing in another running back. I think they'll be okay. But some of the big names that are leaving and going to the draft are quarterback Josh Rosen, declared, going. Sam Darnold from USC, declared, and he's going. Let's see here. You have Calvin Ridley. The wide receiver is going to forego his senior year at Alabama and go to the draft. Also, Bo Scarborough, the running back there, who's back up, he's decided he's going to the draft. Also, you have the other running back they have, Demetri Harris, has decided he's going to come back. He's their star running back, but guess what? I'm coming back to Alabama because that's where I want to play. So he's coming back, which is awesome. Let's see here. Who else? We have... That's really all I have going with the draft. I mean, obviously Baker Mayfield's got to come out because he's a senior. I'm just making sure I didn't miss any of these guys here for you. That's all I have really big into the draft. You also have a couple wide receivers coming out, and you also have a huge running back. I forgot about them, sorry. You also have a wide receiver from Indiana, Simi Cobbs. Not a real big-name wide receiver, but let me tell you something. He did a lot this year for Indiana, and I think the kid can produce. We saw what Tevin Coleman did, another guy out of Indiana, who a lot of people overlooked because of where he went. So I think Simi Cobbs can have a huge impact into the NFL game if somebody gives him a chance. And also, the other big one that a lot of people seem to think is going to come out and make a huge impact instantly in the NFL, Saquon Barkley. He's a dual-threat guy. He's, in my opinion, the most well-rounded person to come out of the draft this year on the offensive side. He can run the ball. He's big. He's strong. He can hit inside the tackles. He can bounce it outside. He can hit you in the slot. He can go on a dig route. And he's big enough and has a big enough body, unlike Christian McCaffrey, who I like, can put a block on somebody because he's big enough to do it. So he can line up as a tight end and lay a block just like a tight end would for you as well. Saquon Barkley, I think, will have the biggest impact coming straight out of college into the NFL, the pros. And I think he's going to go in the top 3, and I think he goes third, probably to Indianapolis. And the reason that is, the other two teams, I think, will take quarterbacks because they are obviously what they need, because that's what you build a franchise on, is quarterbacks. The Colts have a quarterback in Andrew Luck. And speaking of Andrew Luck, we'll segue into the NFL here. The NFL. man, there's been a lot of stuff going on there. There's been a lot of openings, a lot of new jobs. And the Bears got a new head coach. They got Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator from the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, let me tell you, that is big. Sorry there. That is big. He left and is now the offensive he was the offensive coordinator, now head coach for the Bears. And I think he knows something the rest of us don't know. And I'm just saying that because he said the reason why he didn't take the job in Indianapolis, which was offered to him, was because they're unsure about Andrew Luck's health. That is a big question to me right there. If that man there doesn't take the job because he thinks he knows something more than we do, that could be a good insight. And that could be a tidbit to a lot of people on Indianapolis. So maybe Indianapolis doesn't take that running back like I think. But I think Andrew Luck's healthy. He took a good pick in going to Chicago because they have a very good young quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, who came out of North Carolina here. So he's got a good quarterback, and he can build with what he has there, and he knows that quarterback is healthy. He's just uncertain about, Andrew Luck's health. So I think that's big. There's been a lot of people who have been let go of their duties in the NFL and yet to be hired, and those ones are pretty rough to be a part of. Like Atlanta, Steve Sarkisian has left, and he's going to Seattle. He's going to go do them, which I think that's going to be tough. And then Pagano, who got fired from Indianapolis, is being talked to by Baltimore, possibly going to go over there and be their DB coach, which would be awesome. Carolina has fired 2 people. They fired Mike Shula, their offensive coordinator, which makes no sense to me, considering I know Cam Newton. He's had Cam Newton for 7 years, and Cam Newton's been like this his whole career. He was up, he's down. He's up, he's down. This year he was down. Why are you firing Mike Shula? And then you go get Norv Turner. They're pretty much going to do the same thing. You'll see that the numbers are going to be about the same for Cam as they were, before he let go of him. So I don't see any change there with that. They've also fired their quarterback coach, and he is on his way out of Carolina too. And I don't think that's going to make any difference because Cam's going to be Cam. Ken Dorsey is gone. So I don't think that's going to make any difference. Who else has let go of people here? The Cincinnati Bengals have retained theirs. Dallas hasn't done much. Denver's keeping Vince Joseph. The Lions, that's a good one right there. The Lions released Jim Caldwell from his duty. And they're talking to Matt Patricia. That's the leading candidate for Matt Patricia to go to. Do I think it's going to be hard? Yeah. I definitely think it's going to be hard for Matt Patricia to go there because this league is ran around offensive coaches right now, which is why I think the other coach who went to the Bears, Nagy, is going to be really good. Because guess what? If you can be an offensive coach in an offensive league, which is the way it's leaning, you're going to do better. And I think Patricia, being a defensive guy, it's going to make it hard on him. But he's going to Detroit. Detroit's got a quarterback. They got a few good receivers. They got a all right defense, not great. I think he works with the defense, makes it better. But I think it's going to make it hard on him to do that because he's got to worry about both sides of the ball now. He's a coach that has to worry about both of it. And we see what happens when one coach worries about one thing. You have look at the situation you have in Seattle, because Pete Carroll's going to keep his job in Seattle, but at the same time they relieve his excuse me, he's relieved his defensive coordinator who's been there, and they've relieved their linebacker coach who was there. They were the fall guys because Pete Carroll is a defensive guy, and that's what he's concentrated on. He's not really worried about his offense. He's worried about his defense. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen there in Detroit, because if it does, then the same thing's going to happen to Detroit. They're going to worry less about their offense, worry more about their defense if Patricia gets it. The Giants' job's still opening. Indianapolis' job's still opening, but they've talked to a lot of people. They even, this is the funny one here, they even added another name to the list of people they talked to. They talked to Matt Rule, the quarterback, the head coach from Baylor. They interviewed him last week for the head coaching job. So Indianapolis is still looking. They're still unsure who they want. A lot of names on the table. They don't really know who they want yet. And what can I say? There's a lot of people out there. And then Green Bay. That one is a little weird to me. Green Bay released their their offensive coordinator, which I don't understand why they did that, because he's not the problem. Let me tell you, he's been there for a long time, and he's done a very good job. And yeah, I understand their numbers were down and all of that, but it's not the problem. He's not the one who is the problem. So that was a big deal. And then the biggest one of all was obviously John Gruden. John Gruden signed his deal with the Oakland Raiders, going to be going to L.A. It's very big. John Gruden signed the biggest contract in NFL history, 10 years, $100 million. Huge deal. I know last podcast I was very rough on John Gruden, but I've dug in a little bit more, and I understand he's only won, 100 wins, 85 losses, 15 games over 500. But I started thinking about it a little bit more, and I'm not saying he's going to go win right out of the gate, but I think John Gruden can make something happen there. And the reason why is because when you look at Oakland is a hard knocks community. That's why they bought Marshawn Lynch there, because it's hard knocks. What is John Gruden? He's hard knocks. That's what he is. And that fits right into what they are. And also, I know he hasn't coached in 9 years, and it's way different, but he's been in the booth, and he's seen the way the game is played. So that's going to help out a lot. And the other thing is that he's worked the NFL draft and saw this talent and been around Mel Kiper and all of these guys who can scout this talent, and he knows what to look for in a kid. And if he knows what to look for in talent, guess what he's going to do? He's going to draft better players, smarter players, and he's going to have really good young talent around him because he knows what to look at. He might get them in later rounds, but he knows if they got the it factor and all of that. And the other thing is, he has an amazing quarterback in Derek Carr. Derek Carr is amazing. He's going to be a really good quarterback. John Gruden loves the quarterback position and will tell you that. And he even knows that that's one of the quarterbacks he really likes. And he even said it himself when he did Gruden's quarterback camp. So I think that's going to be really good right there, because that division is really going to struggle at quarterback, because there's nobody really in that division, because Denver doesn't have a quarterback. Kansas City's quarterback has yet to prove himself in Patrick Mahomes. And then you got Oakland, who has Derek Carr, which is good. And then you got Phillip Rivers. How much longer does Phillip Rivers really have left in the NFL? So I think he's in a very good spot. And I think that John Gruden signed himself up for very good longevity stuff there. And also, he brought in a quarterback, an ex-quarterback of the NFL, Rich Gannon, to be the quarterback coach. That's cool. So he's got this all ready to go, and he also has his brother to lean on. So his brother, Jay Gruden, who obviously brother is going to help a brother, is going to give him a little insight on how the NFL is as well. So he has a lot of lifelines to lead him and show him the correct direction. I think they make the playoffs this year, but I don't think they make a big run into the playoffs. I think you give him 3 to 4 years after he gets to recruit the players he wants, get them trained, get Carr under his belt, and a couple of those guys ready, other than what he has now. Marshawn will obviously probably be retired by then, and he's up there fighting for a Super Bowl. And then everybody says, well, he didn't do that good when he was in Tampa. Well, I understand that. He didn't do good in Tampa, but he didn't have a quarterback when he was in Tampa. I mean, he didn't have anybody there. That team was built on pretty much people of a different game. He had Mike Allstott. He had Warren Sapp. And they had guys like that because the game was different. I mean, after he won that championship in 2002, he was 6 games under 500 in Tampa. But that's just the part of it. You win some, you lose some. And that was just one he lost. And I think it was a good move for him to go back to the sideline, because I think he's going to be a very good coach. And I think he'll take it to that next level. So we're going to get into the games that happened this weekend real quick. We're going to talk about Tennessee and Kansas City. That was crazy, because Tennessee beat Kansas City that nobody saw coming. I thought they were doomed from the start, because obviously they didn't have their running back. They only had Derrick Henry. They didn't have DeMarco Murray. So I thought they were going to be sluggish there. But they were getting skunked in the whole first half of that game. But Marcus Mariota put that team on his shoulders by himself and carried them to the win. It was awesome to see it. I mean, they went in there and they played the game of their life. They shut them down in the second half. They came back from 18 points down to win by 1, which made it 19. So they scored 19 unanswered points to win that game. Loved it. It was awesome to see. Awesome future for Marcus Mariota. Their defense stepped up, and I think that's the end of the era there for Alex Smith in Kansas City. And I think that's when you make your move to Patrick Mahomes and you try to start over, because obviously you've had him there and you haven't been able to get anywhere. So I think you move away from Alex Smith, and I think Alex Smith either finds his way to Denver or he finds his way to Arizona. But he also has to worry that he's got to contend with Kirk Cousins, who's going to be out on the market as well. So Tennessee will face New England this week. The other one was the Atlanta Falcons and the Rams. Atlanta came in there and completely dominated them, man. I mean, you could see that Atlanta had the experience. Exactly like I said, that's how that game was won. Atlanta traveled across country, played the Rams, but the experience won that game. Matt Ryan came in there and looked amazing. And Jared Goff looked pretty good for being Jared Goff, but Atlanta was just too much experience. And you could see it. And I think Atlanta carried that right in and took control of it. Excuse me. The other one was Jacksonville and the Bills. If you like defense, you liked that game. Because, I'm not going to lie there, I was a huge fan of watching that game because I like defense. Bortles didn't have an amazing game at all. He only threw for 87 yards. He ran for more yards than he threw for. That's only happened 4 times in NFL history. 4 times. And he's one of the 4 who's done it. So that's pretty cool. Tyrod Taylor, he had an all right day. He only threw for like 130 yards. But at the end of the game, he got leveled with a big hit, and they had to pull him out, and they put in, I don't remember the guy's name. I can't remember his name right now, but they put in a kid who they put him, what is it? I'm trying to think. Hold on. Nathan Peterman. Sorry. Had a brain fart there for a second. They put in Nathan Peterman, and he went in there. And, of course, obviously, what did he do in his first game? 5 interceptions. What's he doing this one? He throws an interception. That's the end of the game, and he cost the team a chance at the playoffs. Bortles didn't have that good of a game, but let me tell you, the defense for Jacksonville had an amazing game. Calais Campbell was in the backfield almost every play. I don't know how he's doing it. And it was crazy. And if your defense can stay like that, let me tell you something. Defense wins championships. And that was probably the best defense I've seen all year. And that obviously shows why they've been the best defense all year. So Jacksonville wins that game and heads to a team that they've already defeated once this year to play Pittsburgh. In the other game, this one here was probably the biggest upset to me, was because Carolina played New Orleans. Carolina should have beat New Orleans. Bar none, hand down, should have beat New Orleans. And the reason behind that is because Cam Newton hit Samuels in the hands in the end zone, and he dropped it. Okay, it's third down. So guess what? Now you got to kick a field goal. You bring out Gano. Gano kicks the field goal. Guess what he does? 25-yard chip shot, misses it. So that hurt. It's 3 points. Well, guess what? Carolina is down 5 late in the game. They're walking the ball down the field, and guess what? If they would have had that 3, they would have been down 2, so they wouldn't have had to rush. Or if they would have scored that touchdown, they would have been up 2, so they wouldn't have had to rush. Guess what? They put themselves in that scenario. Cam Newton had a spectacular game. I understand he got overshadowed. He got overshadowed a lot. And the reason I say that is because he got overshadowed by Drew Brees. Drew Brees' game was amazing. Cam Newton threw for 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. An amazing game. Amazing. McCaffrey, had a good game. McCaffrey had that play where he hit him on that little screen route and he took off for like 56 yards. It was beautiful. I loved it. It's gorgeous. But he was overshadowed by who? Drew Brees. Drew Brees threw 376 yards, 1 touchdown, or 2 touchdowns and interception. But he looked like Superman out there. Wherever he put it, his receivers were catching it. Cam Newton couldn't have that. Cam Newton didn't have his receivers catching everything he threw at him. They had an off day. So Carolina should have definitely won that game and kept going. But I'm happy to see the Saints win on. Drew Brees had a good game. I think the Saints are going to have no problem with their people they play this weekend in Minnesota, because Minnesota's got Case Keenum, who isn't a franchise quarterback. So I think the Saints easily win that game. I think the Saints win that one by at least 10 probably. I also think that the other game, you have Atlanta playing the Eagles. I think Atlanta wins that game because Philadelphia has a backup quarterback in Nick Foles. So I think you have Atlanta and New Orleans in the NFC Championship. AFC, you have New England versus Tennessee. I think Tennessee gets throttled, and I think no problem. New England walks right in because they're in Foxborough. And then I think you got your game between Jacksonville and Pittsburgh. And I think that's the one you got the biggest shot for an upset on, but I still don't think an upset happens. And I think Pittsburgh wins that game because I think they have too much offensive firepower for them to shut down. So there's my picks. The AFC Championships, New England and New England and Pittsburgh in Foxborough. Then you have Atlanta and I don't remember the other one, and the Saints, and they play in New Orleans. And then they head to the Super Bowl. So I just want to say a quick hit real quick on the NBA before I jump off of here. I want to say some stuff about a man who plays for the Golden State Warriors. His name's Kevin Durant, ex-Texas Longhorn. He put 20,000 career points behind him last night. That is awesome. He's the second youngest player to do it. There's only been one other player that was younger than him to do it, and that person's name was LeBron James. So Kevin Durant put up all those points and is now the second youngest player to do it. He put 40 points up last night. I understand he got beat, and he got overshadowed because Lou Williams went off last night for the Clippers. He dropped 50, Lou Williams did. He dropped 27 of them in the third quarter. So he just had an amazing game, and you can't stop amazing games. They're going to happen. You're going to have breakouts. But for Golden State to lose that game and for Durant to do that, I think was both an up and down. They didn't have Curry, so I think they left some people on the sides thinking, well, the Clippers can do it. They didn't have Curry. This game doesn't mean anything. Curry wasn't in the game and don't mean nothing. But Durant, to go in there and break over 20,000 points and be the second youngest player to do it, I think that's awesome because he has the talent, and it shows how talented this guy is and how special he really is for the NBA. Is there going to be other people like him? I think there will be, but I don't know who the next freak of basketball will be. And he is definitely a freak of basketball, and it was awesome to see. And with that being said, we are going to start our transition over to the basketball season now because college football is over. I know. College football is over. The NFL is getting close to the end. So here in the next few weeks on it, there's going to be less NFL, less college, and we're going to work our way into the NBA. So it's the Red Line. I'm Jimmy Red. Make sure you tune in next week for the Red Line.